Member for Boundary Similkameen.
Good morning, Honourable Speaker. Today I am pleased to rise to speak about something that should never be controversial in British Columbia, and that is that people should be able to turn on their tap and have clean, safe drinking water come out. But across BC, that is not the reality we see today. In communities, I'll pull one from my inbox this week, the community of Olalla near Karamias. Residents spent almost all of last summer under boil water advisory conditions, and even today, a year later, they remain on a water advisory. The community is still waiting for infrastructure improvements that would make their water reliable and safe. And yet, at the same time, the province has funding available to install water meters. Not to fix the system, not to improve the treatment, not to remove the advisory, not to make their water drinkable, but to put in a meter, to measure how much water people are using. In a quick read through the headlines, the province says metering helps detect leaks, conserve water, support drought planning, and improve long-term management. Those are reasonable goals, but nowhere in those goals does it talk about the quality of the water that we're metering. And that only makes sense when the community has safe drinking water, because the first job of a water system is not tracking consumption. It is delivering clean, safe water for British Columbians. When communities are still boiling their water months at a time, installing meters is not a solution. It is a signal that government's priorities are out of order. And unfortunately, Olalla is not an isolated case. Across British Columbia, drinking water advisories have increased by roughly 1/3 over the last 5 years. In the Interior Health Region alone, where many small rural systems operate, they account for roughly 70% of all advisories in the province, which is why I'm frequently on my feet in this House speaking about water. So not only does my region account for 70% of advisories in BC, but roughly 1/3 of all water systems in Interior Health are currently on advisory. 1/3. That tells us something important. This is not a technical problem. It's not even a temporary problem. This is a structural infrastructure funding problem affecting communities across British Columbia. And even more concerning, I think, is the number of long-term advisories. These are ones that last years, not weeks. That continues to grow the most. Advisories now in place for well over a year before they are resolved. So when government says communities should focus on conservation, behavior change, or metering usage, people quite rightly ask, why are we measuring water we cannot drink? If the strategy to conserve water is to make it undrinkable, that is not stewardship. That is a failure. And what communities are telling us is very clear. They are not asking for more reporting frameworks or pilot programs. They're not asking for mock billing exercises or new ways to measure their water use. They're asking for real investment in infrastructure. They're asking for treatment upgrades that remove advisories, and they're asking for reservoirs, pipes, and source protection that makes their systems reliable for the long term. They are asking for grant programs that meet communities where they are, not programs that require communities to reshape their priorities around the latest provincial initiative while the core issue remains unresolved. Because right now, we're proposing to measure water that people cannot drink. To me, it is obvious that we should not be investing first in meters and measurement tools when we have not vested in water quality first. Grants should follow a priority sequence that reflects the reality on the ground. Communities, regional districts, and improvement districts have already done the planning work. Volunteers and local governments have spent thousands of hours identifying exactly what is needed to deliver safe drinking water. And I can say with confidence that not one of those plans begins with installing meters before fixing the quality. So communities across my region are clear about this, whether it's Skaha, States, Heritage Hills, Headley, Caledon, and even Olalla after a near under advisory conditions. The priority is obvious. Fix the water before we measure it. We're not resisting conservation. We're asking for sequencing that makes sense. We're asking for government to recognize that you cannot manage what people cannot safely drink. Until then, telling communities on advisory that the priority is metering sends exactly the wrong message. Safe drinking water should never be treated as a secondary objective in British Columbia. It should be our starting point, so fix the water first and then measure it. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.